Shalom, everyone. Thank you for joining us again for another episode of Crossing Boundaries. My name is Kim Pashti Yosef. I'm the Director of Operations here at Majdi Tours. And together with me is my beautiful co-host, Aziz Abustera. Hi. I always wonder, have you read all of those books behind you?
I read some, not all, but quite a few. I skimmed all of them, and then I read some.
And when you put the chair where it is, did you think of, what books people are going to see? Yeah.
No, when I put it, I didn't think of what books people are going to see. I thought more about topics and what topics need to stick together. And so I have some Arabic, Palestinian books here. I have some conflict resolution, peace building up here. And I got more other stuff. I got some biblical stuff, Jewish, Hebrew, Arabic, Quran down here. And and I got some Arabic literature, Islam, and what else? Yeah, it's a nice mix.
In Cuba?
I know.
Cuba, I know, I don't. So Carmen, here's a good news.
Okay.
I am taking Spanish finally seriously.
Wow.
And I've been this week taking classes, online classes. So I'm trying. And if it doesn't work, it means I'm really not smart enough anymore to learn another language. My brain stops at 3. But I'm hoping I need to learn Spanish. This is my goal.
Well, that's great, so that you'll be ready next time you go back to Cuba. And
exactly. I can talk to Jose actually directly. So,
yes.
and this
just
is a good
before we jump to Cuba, though, Aziz, I just wanted to say, and I know that you're usually listening these days more to Audible books, but I wanted to tell our listeners that, now we're on podcast, you can listen to us. I know that if you missed previous episodes, you can also take us on your jog or walk, or if you're like Aziz and I, then you also listen to while you're walking, then feel free to look for us, Crossing Boundaries. And now let's go to Cuba.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, and this is a good time to introduce our guest, Carmen Edelson, Carmen, our relationship is a bit different than many of the guests we've had before, because you've traveled with Majdi you traveled with us to Jerusalem.
Yes.
And after we told you that we are interested in Cuba, Scott and I wasn't your guide, Scott wasn't, I think you were with Hossam and Yuval. And you offered, even though you didn't know us personally, you offered to take me and Scott with you to Cuba, to your homeland, where you were born, and introduce us to your family and help us build a program there. And it was incredible. So Scott, for those who don't know, is my co-founder of Majdi, took you upon that invite, and we went and spent a couple of weeks with you and your family in Cuba, and it was magical, amazing. And I always say my favorite part of that trip was not the touristy sites. It was not Havana, for example, which I know it's beautiful and it's nice and it's cool to visit, but it was staying with your family in this small town in the outskirts of Santa Clara, and just really see real life in Cuba. And it was just so beautiful. It was so simple. It was so relaxing. And I fell in love with everyone in your family, obviously, which was not that hard to do. They were all incredible, especially Jose, who was just unbelievable host. We stayed in his house and was just unbelievable host for us. So that's how we met. And yeah, I thought maybe in the beginning you can just introduce, you're not foreigner to travel. You didn't just say, oh, come, I'll show you my homeland or home country, but you work in travel as well. So do you want to tell us a bit about your background? What do you do? And so people know you.
Sure. So again, I'm Carmen Edelson, and I started a blog in 2013, Carmen's Luxury Travel. Basically, we were just focusing on our travel experience in the beginning, and then I wanted to start to educate people more about places that they haven't been to, even though some people can't travel to these places, but I wanted them to kind of see a different perspective of travel and immerse more in the culture. And that's what I really loved about my experience in Israel, because you really, it was like not only seeing all the different beautiful sights, but it was also, um, you know, speaking with people. I mean, having, sitting down with people in the different places that we went, the dinners, visiting with your mom, especially, and getting to meet your family too is very special. So I wanted, I wanted people to realize that, Cuba is more than just Havana. There's all these little towns all around that I think they're fantastic, and I think they're worth seeing. Um, a lot of places they have, artwork is amazing. We have a lot of talented painters there that want to be discovered. I have a few favorites actually in Trinidad that I've been working with, and I'm trying to promote some of his work here in the US. So it's more of a kind of learning the culture, understanding that, what is out there other than Havana. So that's why I was so happy when you showed interest in wanting to see Cuba and coming, and I said, let me show you the real Cuba, the Cuba that a lot of people don't see when they come to Cuba.
Right. So when people often go to Cuba, they want to go to the 5-star hotels or 4-star
Right.
hotels or whatever, and they'll go to the couple of main museums, enjoy the beach, and do some of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the Cuba you showed us was very different. So what is that Cuba? What's the Cuba that people should be looking for?
Well, yeah, everybody wants to stay in a 5-star hotel, but you're not going to really get that experience like staying in what we call Casa Particulars, which is someone's house, and they have designated a room or two where people can actually stay. And, they make breakfast for you. So you're showing pictures right now of Trinidad, which is one of my favorite places, Casa Ariana, which is where we stayed for a few days. And again, it's kind of like a bed and breakfast, and it's a more homely feel. You get to, you feel like, you're immersed in the culture. And it was nice. I mean, you're like staying in someone's home in their, in a room where you have your own bathroom. If you like, they make dinner for you. In our case, they made, I believe, breakfast in the morning. And then you get to wander around all day around town and, discover what there is to do here in the towns. There's a bunch of museums, especially in Trinidad, that are worth seeing. And you just, it's like you connect with the local people, which I think is so important, and that's something that we don't do often.
Right.
How do you find that people sometimes feel uncomfortable arriving, directly to someone's home and staying with them? How do you create that initial connection?
I think a lot of times is, first emails. We get most of the people that I know that stay in Casa Particulars are recommendations. They've had friends that have stayed at the house and they've had a fabulous time, so they recommended. It is, I mean, troublesome. You don't know who you're staying with, but you do research. I mean, a lot of these places are on TripAdvisor or, just again, if someone reaches out to me and asks me questions, I'd be happy to answer about staying in a local house and how much it's meaningful to the owners, because, they don't make a lot of money there and they really rely on this type of income. We stayed at the bed and breakfast, and I think it was maybe $30 a night versus staying at a 5-star hotel, which they're probably charging you $500 a night. And I prefer staying at the $30 a night, and just, feeling like I'm in, I'm home, I guess. I mean, that's what the feeling is.
But Carmen, you deal a lot with luxury reviews, and you
Right.
you specialize in luxury travel.
Yes.
So how are you telling people to not stay in a luxury hotel and stay in a house that's not as luxurious as those hotels? What are you redefining what luxury means here?
In this sense, yes. I think nowadays people view luxury different ways. to me, luxury is not just staying in a 5-star hotel, it's the service. It's what you get out of your vacation. And, yes, it's not a 5-star hotel, but, it does have all the amenities that you need that I feel, you will enjoy your vacation. Cuba is not so much, to me, Cuba is not about staying in a 5-star hotel. It's more about, discovering the country and the people and, seeing what's around you, which I don't think you get to see the real Cuba if you stay in a nice luxury hotel.
You remember what we did though? We stayed right next to a 5-star hotel.
Yes.
So we got, when we needed the 5-star hotel's utilities, whatever it was, like going
The
to
Wi-Fi at the time.
the
There was no Wi-Fi.
right? We stayed literally across the street from a 5-star hotel. So we spent a lot of time there, but we didn't sleep there. And we ended up getting to know the family, having breakfast with them, like you said, which was actually, I did stay in the hotel as well because we wanted to figure out all kind of potential customers where they're going to stay. And I enjoyed way more staying with the family than staying in the hotel, way, way more. But there is a way to kind of combine. You can stay with the family and go to the hotel and use their bar and restaurant or Wi-Fi or whatever needed for you.
Do they usually speak English? Is it simple to travel there, or even just staying with the family? Is it easy to connect to?
There's a lot of people in Cuba that speak English. And even if they don't, they really try, and there's ways for you to communicate with them. The Cuban people are just so happy, and they're friendly, they're accommodating. So it's, they'll try their best. In our case, when you guys were there, I think I had a tour guide who was English speaking that took us around to a few places in Havana. Because you wanted to, I wanted them to explain to you a little bit more about, things to do, places to see. And then outside of Havana, I think we went to Cienfuegos. We spent, we were in Trinidad for 2 days, and then I think Havana for 3, if I'm not mistaken.
And then we
did a lot of
Italy for like a week in Placentas, right?
Yeah, Placetas. So my family lives in Placetas. Placetas is a little town, which is probably about 20 miles from Santa Clara. And it is probably the only town in Cuba that has the largest population of horse-drawn carriages that are still in existence.
Yeah.
And I mean, to get around town, you pay 25, 30 cents. You get in this horse-drawn carriage, and it takes you everywhere around town.
Yeah, you get a private ride, and they stay whenever you go somewhere. They wait for you. It was fantastic. And then if you need something, you tell them to stop. Like I saw the guys playing soccer. We stopped. I got off, played soccer for 10 minutes, went back in the carriage, and went to our next destination.
No, it's a lot of people in Cuba don't own cars. Automobiles are very, very expensive in Cuba. Gasoline is very, very expensive in Cuba and sometimes hard to find. So the means of transportation for most of my family is bicycles, and now, scooters are getting very popular. But for those, that don't have means to buy for bicycles, buy scooters, which is the get around town. And, 25 cents is a lot of money for them, but for us, it's nothing, but for them it is, but that's just how it is. My husband thinks that, there's a business here that, they should all get into maybe like Uber, like, calling carriage on Uber that they pick you up, but they're not there yet.
And I just want to remind everyone, please feel free to send us your question as we're having the conversation. So you don't have to wait until the end. This is a conversation, not, you can send us your question as we are having this conversation. One thing people think about Cuba is music, is art. I think many of the people I talk to about, hey, do you want to go to Cuba? And their answer is yes, because there's this romanticized idea about Cuban music. It's like you're gonna go back to the 50s and those kind of, Cuba was the music scene in Latin America back then. So tell us what the art scene is like now, and can you still go and get to hear those kind of music places and I know those bands and feel like you're really back in the frozen time of the 50s.
There are a lot of places that still have, their clubs. I know throughout Havana, there's a few, and probably some of the small little towns. Music has always been very big for the Cuban population. We love our music. We love our salsa. We love our dancing. So that's always been, something that is instilled in all of us. And the arts have become very popular. Like I said, we have a lot of emerging artists all throughout, Cuba that I think need to be discovered. There's so much talent right now. And that's what I would like to hopefully help some of the Cuban artists there, get them to be seen here in the US, hopefully. And, when you go to Cuba, support the arts. I mean, buy a nice piece of artwork. I mean, you can buy an original there probably for $200, $300. That will probably cost you here $3,000. And, it means a lot to the artists there as well.
We're having a lot of questions come in now that Aziz opened the gates. So Noor asked if we can talk about the pandemic a little bit, sorry, how people are dealing with it today, what it's looking like in Cuba.
So the pandemic, it's been very, very hard. It was very, very hard for my family. What they did was they shut down all the different provinces so that you couldn't go from, let's say one county to another. Food is sometimes very hard to get there. That's one of the things that, unfortunately my family, when they get, chicken in, they have to make lines to get, food. So it's very, very difficult. They've had to make their own mask in some cases. I don't know exactly all in all what the government's doing to help with the pandemic, but I know they're trying to help not spread it, which I give them credit for that, by keeping everybody kind of contained in your own area. And from what I hear, the reason that they got the pandemic were, people like, I guess, of Cuban Americans that were coming in from the US that were bringing in. Also, I believe the first cases that happened there were Italians that came in from Europe and had the coronavirus, and that's how it started to spread. But right now, I know they just opened up travel again, and once you get down there, I think you have to isolate yourself for 5 days. They come, they check to make sure that you're not contagious. And, they're doing the best that they can, with what they have. I mean, medicines is probably the worst of all, that because everything got shut down, they were so used to having people come in and bring in, medicines from the US. So my family, when I ask them right now, what's the number one item that you need most? It's medicines. Advil, Tylenol, Alka-Seltzer, Pepto-Bismol, just common everyday things that we take for granted here, they need. So I don't know if you met Julio. You did meet Julio, didn't you? Our friend, he might have been in Havana. He actually went to Cuba today, and I just sent a care package to one of my cousins who unfortunately is having problems, medical problems, and needed some medicines that were not available there. So I just sent a whole package of medicines that he was taking to them. So when I travel there, that's, I bring bags of medicines, Band-Aids, whatever I think, is needed to help them out. And it goes a long way, like I said.
Right. And sorry, Kim. I was going to say, one of the people who have contacted me before actually the show had a question exactly about that, and was asking, how can she send items to people she knows there, or money to people she knows there? is there really a way to help your friends, your family, or is it only through sending it with somebody who goes there? Are there regular ways to do it?
Right now, there's only sending it through people that are going. Unfortunately, a lot of things got cut back. And one of the things that was eliminated was Western Union, which was a way for me to send money to my family in Cuba. So now, we have to, ask favors of people that are going, that, you're taking stuff for your own family, so you're very limited on how much you can bring in. So you have to ask a favor. Can you please, if I give you $100, can you please take it to my family member, or can you take a medicine, or can you do, so that's how right now, how we're doing it. I hope things change. But unfortunately, it's tough. It's very tough right now. I have my cousin Alexandra, which I don't know if she's on our call or not, but it's easy for her to send money from Spain. So now a lot of the, I guess throughout Cuba, they're promoting not credit cards, but they're like ATM cards that they're having all of the people get. They're debit cards, and there's ways of you depositing money in these debit cards that they can use now in stores there, that they're starting to, fill up with goods that before people couldn't get, but you can only use this debit card to purchase things in the stores. So Alexandra from Spain is able to add money to my cousin's card for her to go to the store. I, here in the US, am not allowed to do that because of the restrictions.
So other countries can send money there.
Yes.
But
yes,
Americans, and if they want to do it, they can do it through adding money to the cards of their friends or family or whoever there. We're trying to see if Alexandra can join us. It's Alexandra Hernandez, right?
Yes.
So
I'd love for her to join in because she can, explain a little bit more of how we're doing this. And so I had to basically send money to her for her to send to my family. And that's how we did it recently.
All right, I think here we go. Alexandra, how are you? Can you hear us?
Listen to me? Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome.
Alexandra,
Thank
we
you.
met in Havana, right?
Yes, we met in 2017 when we went to Havana. Yes.
Good. My memory is still functioning.
Yes.
And you are in Spain now?
Yes, I'm based in Madrid, Spain.
What do you do in Madrid?
Well, I'm still studying in the university.
What do you
when we met, I was in my first year of university. I'm about to finish right now. But yeah, I'm studying here. I'm living here already for 7 years. So yeah, I mean, I'm studying here, and I think I'm gonna stay here a little bit longer, see if I can find some work here, some job. And yes, I mean, I love Madrid, but we have our roots in Cuba. That's who we are.
So Alexandra's videography journalism is what and she's on my team, so I put her sometimes. So we were talking about money, and he was asking me is how people send money right now to Cuba, and I was telling him that it's unless we do it through you or through a third party, that it's impossible for people in the US to send money now, especially since they eliminated Western Union.
Yes, exactly. Because the Cuban government has these restrictions to the US citizens, so they cannot send money directly to Cuba. So Carmen, every time she wants to send some aid or money to our family in Las Zetas, she has to send the money to me here in Madrid, and then I use my normal bank account and I send the international money, the transfer to my Cuban family there.
Are you aware if people in Canada can use the same system? It's just one of the
I'm not sure about that. I mean, the Cuban government published some kind of list of countries that can send money to Cuba, but it depends also on the bank company. So I cannot say if from Canada you can send this money to Cuba.
No problem. We have Mary asking if we can talk about the two currency system and if it's changing or how
Well,
it's changing.
Right now, actually, it's from what I hear, they're trying to eliminate one of the currencies, the CUCs. They only want to take American dollars, which is good for us, but not good for them because, you know, they need tourism to come in to bring in the American dollars, the euros. But they do have the CUCs and the, what is it, chapitos, or is that what you call the cheaper?
Yes. Well, CUC or chavitos. Yes.
So a lot of the older generation uses and they only accept, I guess, the chavitos versus the CUC. I don't know if I think they get paid in chavitos, right? Monthly
No, they get
salary?
paid in Cuban pesos.
In Cuban pesos, okay.
They raised the salaries recently, but still are very low.
Yeah. Still two currencies. There's some talk of them getting rid of the CUCs, but that hasn't happened yet. It's very confusing. For me, it was very confusing when I was there, you know, and for anybody, it would be very confusing.
We only used one of the two, and I understood locals can use the other one, but we only used the Cuban pesos and dollars.
Yes.
Like I know when we took the old car ride, the prices were in dollars, not in Cuban currency. The casas, to stay in a casa, the prices were in dollars, and we paid in dollars, and people were happier, I think, with that. So we got so many questions. We're trying to go through as many of them as we can. What are Cuban people attitudes toward Americans?
They love Americans. You know, they were very upset when, you know, everything got shut down. You know, they were so happy when the cruise ships started to come in to Cuba. You know, again, you know, it was prospecting their businesses where you have these local, you know, people that have homes that were restaurants and they were feeding people coming in. You had these, you know, the overwhelming people that couldn't stay in the 5-star hotels and were staying in the casas. Everybody was making a little bit extra money, which was very welcoming for them. And they're hoping that everything will open up again. My family is hoping that things will go back to the way they were. The flights, you know, their direct flights were eliminated. Now all flights are going through Havana, and it's a nightmare. I mean, Havana is a big airport. You imagine all these international flights coming in there. I've heard horror stories. I've heard people that it's taken them 3 hours just to get out of the airport with their luggage because of the influx of flights that they just don't have, you know, the manpower for. I used to fly JetBlue from Fort Lauderdale direct to Santa Clara. It was a 45-minute flight, and it's only 20 minutes from where my family lives. Now I have to fly to Havana, which is a 4-hour ride. I have to spend the night in Havana and then probably, you know, head to my family the next day. So it's a lot of costs entailed because, again, it's probably about $100 worth of gasoline for them to come get me. Then we all, you know, I have to spend the night in Havana, so that extra costs, and then going back. So it's very tough right now. We're hoping, you know, borders will start to open up again and they'll allow the cruise ship industry, they'll add more flights and things will start to prospect a little bit more.
And when tourism kicks back in, do you know if Americans can go to Cuba without having to be approved or have like a certain tour that they're on? Can they go on their own? I know, I mean, someone wrote here that they had 2 guides even, a governmental guide and a people-to-people guide.
I think now, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe Steve, you can answer this, but I think they still have to go through a tourist group. And, you know, I know they got rid of the people to people, but they have the people to support now. They have all these different, I guess, licenses that you can use to get in. I don't know if Americans can just go in on their own. It would be nice if they could, but it's hard to say. I don't know.
Right, because rules have been rolled back.
Mhm.
8 years ago, or yeah, about 8 years ago, 7 years ago, Cuba opened up and anybody could travel, and it became easier and easier. And now it got back in the last few years with the current administration, the US. A lot of those rules have changed, which hotels you can stay in, anything owned by the government. So it became just so complicated. So most tour companies I'm aware of have decided to stop running these tours because you had to prove as a tour company that nothing you're spending is helping the government there. And that's really hard to do, and you don't want to be liable as a tour company and have to deal with the US government, and did you break the rules, and it could destroy your business. So most companies have stopped in the US running tours. The travel industry, and I know in the US people are divided in this, some people are divided in this, but the travel industry in the US is definitely hoping that there'll be more openness again. And Americans would be able to travel again to Cuba more normally, be able to do a people to people or support or any of these, or to travel honestly on their own. I think this regulation of having to go with a group is ridiculous. You have to document what you did and prove that what you did is acceptable. Travel shouldn't be that way. And I would say one of the things I liked about traveling in Cuba is I knew so much of the money I was spending was actually going to people. And I would say many places we travel to, you don't. Meaning when you stay in a casa, you actually know the family you're giving money to. Most countries, you don't have those exact options. You can eat in people's homes. You can go meet artists. And I love, like, Cuba in some ways, the way Americans travel to Cuba is in some ways the model how Mejdi wanted to exist, is this whole connect to people, meet journalists, meet artists, meet professor, meet a priest, met just so many different people. It was incredible.
Yeah, I see someone, one of our listeners actually wrote that they went on their own independently to Cuba. So I hope it will still be an option after the pandemic. We had a question asking if you can talk about the education system in Cuba. Just shed any light about what it's like to, I guess, be educated there, go to school.
Alexandra, you went to school in Cuba, right?
Yes. I mean, I left Cuba with 18 years old. So yes, I studied this into high school in Cuba. So, well, actually, the political system is present in schools too. But I mean, I think it's a very complete education there, because you don't have to choose. For example, here in Spain, you have to choose if you want to go with the science, or if you want to go to study Spanish or similar. But in the case of Cuba, you have the whole package. I mean, you study science and you study literature, you study everything. So in that sense, I think it's very complete educational system.
I mean, we have family members that are, doctors, that are, professionals, they're teachers, and, the education, Cuban doctors are very educated, and they're probably one of, if it wasn't for, I think they don't have a lot of the top technologies like we have here in the US, but they're very well trained.
You wanna go?
Go ahead. Me?
Well, I have a few questions. Actually, I'll ask something not from people for a moment, and Kim, you can then come back at this. I actually was impressed that there is a diversity I didn't know about also in Cuba in the population. And because my partner Scott is Jewish, we had a rabbi who connected us, and with you as well, you did, who told us you have to go visit the Jewish community, for example, in Cuba. I found out there's an Arab community in Cuba, and it was really fascinating. I mean, we went to two synagogues in Havana. We went to a synagogue in Santa Clara, and we went to a synagogue in Cienfuegos. I went to more synagogues in Cuba than I've done in my whole life. So is Scott. I think we just were in synagogue after another, and it was really fascinating. Again, met people from Arab background, Palestinian background. It just was fascinating to see the diversity of population that I wasn't aware of, and that those communities still exist. Can you tell us a bit about that diversity that exists there?
Alexander, you want to?
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing for me too. I mean, I was amazed about the fact that there was too many other cultures present in Cuba. I mean, we have the Afro-American culture in Cuba, the Afro-American religion too. But it was amazing to discover that there was also a Jewish community in Cuba. For me, that was a discover.
Yeah, I didn't realize that there were so many Jewish synagogues as well. I was kind of surprised as well. But I think it's great that, there's different types of cultures. There's still the beliefs that they still practice every day. And, it's all over, like I said, Cuba, not just in Havana, which we saw by visiting all the different towns had, different synagogues and different churches and, different organizations.
Yeah. And the one in Cienfuegos, the son, I think it was a smaller community, had an arts shop, and we ended up going to his arts shop, and it was just fascinating to see that. It was like opening all these doors that you wouldn't otherwise have done. I'm very grateful we were able to do that. Kim, you wanna pick a question?
Sure. Going back to traveling in the country, what is the internet connection like across the country? Is it accessible? Is it easy? Aziz was talking about going to the 5-star hotel next door, but what is it like not in the big cities?
Yeah, can I start before Carmen? I know you'd wanna answer that. When I went 3 years ago, it was not great, right? Internet was very hard. I remember having to go to the hotel, and then when we went in your family's town, we had to go to that town's park. That was the only place, and we had to fill in this card, and 80% of the time it didn't really work well. So it was hard. And in some ways I was grateful for it, because I was like, oh, I can live without this thing. So I hated it and I enjoyed it at the same time. It was good to get disconnected from the world. But that's changing, right?
It's changed a lot actually in the last few years. So now a lot of homes actually have internet service where they buy a package, and I don't know if it's $30 a month, which is a lot of money for them. And they get maybe 30 hours of Wi-Fi for the month that you can use out of your home. So Jose has it, which is nice, in his home. People still go to the park. You still get the little cards where you have to, scratch off for, I don't know if it's $2 to $3. But it is becoming more and more accessible throughout the island, which is, fantastic, especially for us. I mean, I'm one that I'm always I have to be connected. Before I couldn't even get a phone call. Like, a lot of people go there and they buy SIMs cards and they use a SIMs card when they're in the island. But I don't even change my SIM cards. And like 2 years ago, I was there, my phone rang, and it was someone here from the US calling me. I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting a direct call from the US. So something's working, But no, it has gotten a lot better. And like I said, it is more and more, they're putting up more and more towers, making it more accessible to not only the people, but hopefully the tourists coming in. So now we don't have to just go to a hotel just to use the Wi-Fi. We can do it, hopefully in a house.
I remember Aziz telling me about going to the park and wondering if the scratch card will work or not work. And if something is urgent, you have to run there and scratch a bunch of cards and hope for the best. I'm glad to hear it's getting better. We had another question. How likely do you think it is that the embargo will end under the Biden administration?
We're hopeful. I love to see it end because, nothing, I don't, it's been so long and nothing's working. And the only people that are suffering right now are the people there. It'd be great for, them to have access to everything that we do. So fingers crossed that, things will happen.
I have to say, I think this is the most questions we've ever got in any of our live streams, and they keep coming, which is great. We didn't need to think about our own questions, and it's fantastic. I think we've had so far, 11, 12 questions, and we got a few more. Howard says his father lived in Cuba from 1939 to 1941. He was supported by the American Friends Service Committee in Havana. Are you aware of the committee's role in aiding European refugees prior to World War II? I know nothing about it. I don't know if either of you.
I don't, but I definitely would look into it.
Yeah, sounds fascinating. We all have some homework to do, Howard, and look into the American Friends Service Committee. So we'll do that. And we have another question. It says, when I went to Cuba in 2015, everything was CUC, cash, no credit cards anywhere. And you mentioned earlier something about cards, putting money on cards. So are credit cards now working in Cuba, or is that a different kind of card? Or
well, credit cards, European credit cards, yes. American credit cards, no. So if you're coming in from overseas and you have a credit card, I believe that yes, in some places you could use your credit card, especially these stores that they're just opening up. But I usually just take cash, and it's hard. A lot of people have asked me, well, how much cash do I need to bring down there if I'm staying for, X amount of days? And, you don't know, because the last thing you want to do is run out of money. And then, before it was easy. I could call my husband and say, hey, I need money, send it to me on Western Union. But now we can't use Western Union. So it's very challenging.
Ooh, that's not easy. I mean, I remember that we asked you when we went, and on one hand, you also don't want to take too much money with you because you're afraid of losing it. You're afraid of you don't want to be going from a place to place carrying $3,000-$4,000 in your pocket, because you're gonna have to pay your hotel or your casa in cash. So you're gonna at least need a couple $1,000s in cash, and it's not fun carrying that much money. It makes you anxious the whole time.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is get a European credit card.
If you can, yeah, hopefully, like I said, I'm hoping that things will change, and I'd love to go down there and use my own debit card and my own credit card, but right now it's not an option, so I have to take cash when I go.
Awesome.
I would like to know, what is your favorite spot in Cuba? I mean, I know that we usually ask this when we're talking about a location. Do you have a specific spot that you would take someone? I don't know, maybe you took Aziz.
I love Trinidad, and I did take Aziz to Trinidad, and we stayed there for 2 days. It's a colonial town, city. It's over 500 years old. There's still parts of what we call Plaza Mayor, which is the old colonial town, what you just right there, that it just feels like you're walking back in time, and time stood still. It's the historical area, so they don't allow any construction. It's very colorful, and all the streets are cobblestone, so it's just a really pretty place to just walk around, and you could see the mountains in the back. So I always enjoy going back to Trinidad. I don't know what it is about Trinidad, but I just love Trinidad.
I 100% agree with you. I
Yeah.
think Trinidad was by far my favorite place, by far. I really enjoyed the horse riding. We went to the waterfalls. You didn't come with us though.
I did not, right. So they
But
took a horse. You guys took a horse, which was what, a 45-minute, I think, ride to like
yeah,
the
to
nice little waterfall
waterfall,
that you got to
and we
swim.
got to swim. And on the way, we stopped at this place where they roll their own cigars, bought a cigar, smoked a cigar in the middle of like the guy rolled it for you in front of you. It was fascinating, and just made a few stops, and it was so much fun. But right, I think I remember great food there. I remember the streets, just feeling you really back in time. Um, the um, the music, there was music everywhere every night, and that was just so fun. And then the houses, I mean, we stayed literally, your casa, your family's casa is
Capariana.
literally downtown, so you in the middle of the city, and that just was so nice. And I've talked to a lot of people who went to Cuba, and they don't usually go there, and I was kind of surprised, because I don't know if the area can handle too much tourism, but it's, to me, it's the clearest place you got to go. It's very close to the Bay of Pigs, which for Americans is really important. That's the whole conflict background. But yeah, it's definitely agree with you, and I see more questions coming. So Kim, you want to pick something, and we'll probably have these last couple of questions and end at some point there.
All right. Well, Dave is asking, when Cubans celebrate their history, what are the specific times or experiences that they would focus on?
Well, are we talking politically, or are we talking about,
It's your
I think
choice.
points in.
I mean, Alexandra, I mean, celebration wise, a lot of the different towns celebrate, every year.
Yes, I mean, the most common festivity is Carnaval. They celebrate it 2 times the year, during the summer and during winter. So this is the most common festivity. But then they have all the political holidays, let's say, which is January 1st, and then they have another one in July 26th. And well, they also celebrate Christmas, and most of them related to the Catholic Church.
Yeah, I think I don't know, for my family, Three Kings Day is very big. And I know some towns have these huge, floats and carnivals all around Three Kings Day. Remedios is very well known. Three Kings Day is what we celebrate instead of Christmas in Cuba. So the kids normally put boxes under they still do this. When I was, that's what I remembered, you put a box under your bed, and that's where your gifts were sometimes. I don't know if that's changed. I think it has a little bit, but because a lot of people they don't have Christmas trees. They can't afford Christmas trees.
So is it a religious related holiday, or it's just cultural?
It's a religious, a lot of Cuba is Catholic, so it's religious.
Okay, cool. Let's see, what's next? I'm assuming the answer is yes to this, but I'll ask it. Is it still difficult to obtain building materials in Cuba? And I mean, materials in general. I remember it was hard to obtain it back then. I would assume with the pandemic, it became even much harder to do that.
Yes. There's no Home Depot or Lowe's in Cuba. So where people can go and buy materials. And because of the pandemic, there's been a lot of restrictions. It's hard for people to get a bag of cement or, building materials. A lot of times, it's buying in off of people that, unfortunately have it. I'm hoping that that'll change and that they'll, with these stores they're opening up, which are becoming like grocery stores for the people, that they'll do the same with, building materials and supplies. But, it's different there. Like, I've been down there where we've had some things, where I've worked on projects with my family, and, you call someone to come and, they show up in their bike, and let's say it's an electrician and we want them to fix an outlet. Well, he doesn't have a screwdriver, or he doesn't have the proper wire. So he has to go to someone's house and, borrow a screwdriver, or, see if they can get the wire somewhere else, or get the junction box. So it's very different.
Last question. Meredith, she says she visited driving from Trinidad to Havana, and they stopped in a small town visiting the local community that was raising, I guess, bees. They did some art items that have to do with bees. The kids dressed like bees. Does that ring a bell at all? Because she's trying to recall the name of the town.
Between Trinidad and Havana. Do you know, Alexandra?
I was searching about it right now because I got curious about it. And maybe Navajas town. I don't know if because I'm not sure about it, but I was Googling and this popped it up.
Thank you. Can you put it down in the chat, just the name that you mentioned? Great.
Awesome. Well, this was so much fun. Carmen and Alexandra brings so much memories being with you and in Cuba, and I hope we can all meet there again soon.
Yes.
Being able to travel there and to come and visit you there and visit your family, and give my greetings to everyone. Scott and I talk about our time there all the time, so we're very grateful for it.
Well, I told them today that we were chatting, and they all said to say hello to you. And everybody says they're waiting for your return, especially Jose. He says your room is still available.
And hopefully I'll speak better Spanish next time. Jose was playing, for everyone listening, was trying to teach me Spanish while I was there, but he was playing tricks on me, teaching me things maybe I shouldn't learn, and just having so much fun with it. And every other night he'll put on the music late at night, and me and him will just dance off. So he's like the coolest guy you can meet in Cuba. Even when we couldn't communicate speaking with each other, we just became best buddies somehow.
Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate you invited me on the show, and like I said, I'd love to discuss more about Cuba if there's more interest, and hopefully good things will come in the next few months, and we can get some of the Americans to start traveling back to the island.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me join too.
Yeah, thank you, Alexandra, for joining us. And next week, we are talking about Morocco, another awesome spot to talk about. So next week, we'll talk with some of our friends from there. For those who don't know, Mejdi run trips in Morocco. And so we'll talk with our partners in Morocco, people we've worked with there. And I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Definitely. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and thank you, Carmen and Alexandra, for sharing all of this knowledge. I think people are really excited to go to Cuba once it's available again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.